Every Souls-like game gets measured against the same game. 16 years on, Dark Souls is still that yardstick, and most things that get compared to it come off worse for comparison. Mortal Shell 2 invites it. Bonfires, a leveling currency you drop when you die, a world that folds back on itself. It's standing right next to Dark Souls on purpose, and in some ways it loses that fight. In some ways that I didn't expect, it actually wins. Mortal Shell 2 is a standalone sequel. You don't need to play the first one. You play as Harbinger, a hollow thing that survives by possessing bodies of dead warriors it finds out in the world. 8 of them this time, up from 4, and each one is a different character to play. The world is semi-open, not a map covered in icons, a compact, interconnected one that keeps looping back on itself, with more than 60 dungeons buried in it. It's dark fantasy and it's strange. Forests, citadels, built out of bone, graveyards made out of skeletons, and enemies that match. I fought things I couldn't describe to you. The bosses are the same. My first proper one was a boss in a wheelchair, throwing fire across the room, and that's roughly the level this game operates at. Combat is melee, a sidearm, and whatever ability your shell brings. Starting off with save points for obvious reasons. They're called beacons, and they work the way you'd expect. Rest, restore, respawn, and the usual. But most of them are corrupted when you find them, and you get the option to actually cleanse them. The first time I took the option, I assumed it was just filler, a corridor and a health bar between me and this, some loot. That's not what happened. Some are 2 rooms, some are sprawling with things I got lost in. There are mini bosses in them, there's puzzles in others, and they're all just different. And it doesn't get old either. Each time I found a beacon, I was ready to cleanse it. I didn't feel like, oh no, now I have to cleanse this beacon. I actually wanted to cleanse it. There are 8 shells, and they aren't stat variations on each other. They look different, they play drastically different, and choosing one is closer to choosing a class than choosing a loadout. Mine was Teal, rogue, stealth, and poison type. He's got a shadow step that's good on its own, and once I upgraded it, it started leaving poison behind. The same move got me past a lot of fights I didn't actually want to take either. So the way you upgrade your shell is with glimpses, which unlock new memories, and each memory you unlock opens a new tier of abilities that you use SP points to actually learn the abilities. The only issue I have with this progression system with the shells is that you don't get enough SP points. So even after finishing the game, I couldn't upgrade like 2 shells fully, maybe 1.5 shells. You can unlearn the abilities and then put it all in one, but that's more like tedious. So that was the only issue with that shell system. So the way you level your actual character is with Gloom at a beacon, and you drop that Gloom where you die, just like all Souls games. But when you level in Dark Souls, you choose strength, dexterity, endurance, vitality. You're making a character. And 40 hours later, the character is yours because of the hundreds of small decisions. Here, you spend and the numbers go up in a fixed order. There's no build to the craft at that layer. Every time you do level your character, you feel noticeably stronger. Your health, you can physically see it go up. Where the customization actually lives in is your gear. There are 16 things to swing, 8 primary melee weapons and 8 sidearms. Upgrading happens at the Tar Forge, back at Murrug Heap. The way you upgrade your weapons is you use materials that you find plus coins. Now, if you upgrade, let's say, one item really, really high, and then you find a new one like I did where I found the scythe and I wanted to upgrade it, you can smelt down your current one and you get all the upgrades back, and then you can put it all into the new one, which is really good because it means you're not stuck with one weapon the whole game like I was in Elden Ring, for example, where I just had one weapon and I kept upgrading that. And then there are the Tarstones, things you slot in that change how your character behaves rather than just how hard they hit. This is where you build a playstyle instead of a stats sheet. The part I like is that you keep the Tarstone equipped, keep killing things, and it gets experience and levels. Committing to a build makes the build better, which beats hoarding everything and never deciding. I did stick with the sword from the beginning of the game until about halfway through, and then I found the Clockwork Scythe, and that thing's lethal. I upgraded it fully, and it hits from so far away and it swipes sideways, so you can hit multiple enemies at the same time, and I just loved it. And the ranged weapons aren't just an afterthought either. In most of these games I've played, like Neo, ranged is what you use when you run out of ideas. Here I was mixing ranged, shell abilities into fights evenly with melee, and that's what makes it feel dynamic instead of just heavy. Then the small thing that isn't small. Every kill animation is on its own. After finishing the game and fighting so many different enemies, each one has its own death animation. So now the world and the map. It's dark fantasy, and I won't pretend it isn't, but it commits and it's strange. Environments are so varied in every single area, just different, and they look amazing. There's stones with mouths chiseled into them, there's statues everywhere, and every environment is unique. The map is what I actually really want to talk about too. You don't start with one, you find pieces. There's bird icons on the world map that when you do find them, fill in a little space. There's no minimap, there's no compass, nothing in the corner telling you where to go. What you do is drop a beacon on the map, then look for it out there in the distance and work out on your way how to get to it. So you don't take the route that the game intended, you take whatever looks climbable, and on the way you fall into a dungeon you weren't looking for, an enemy you haven't seen, loot you didn't know about. So I found myself in areas that I wanted to explore because first they looked amazing, and second, you never knew what was around the corner, and there is loot everywhere. Even when I went back to record this video and to find, to look at the different areas, there was so much loot that I didn't find in so many little areas that I never even saw. Now for the difficulty, and I honestly think that it's a super balanced Souls game. I never really got stuck, there was no hard stops. So I'll get up to a boss and either one-shot it or maybe 3 attempts, sometimes 4, but I was never really stuck. And same with the areas. I never felt like it was unfair. There was no enemies jumping out of nowhere and one-shotting me. And reaching a beacon, you would get there, but with no potions left. So you just get in there, which I think is really, really balanced. So you still have that fear that you're not going to make it and you're going to lose all your souls. I also think this is the most accessible Souls game. So people put off playing Souls games because they think that they're way too hard. And in this case, it is hard, but it's not that hard. So if you're being putting off playing a Souls game because of the difficulty, this one here, you should feel progress every time you turn the game on. And that's how I felt. Now onto performance. I played this probably 50% on my Steam machine and 50% on my PC. So on the Steam machine, it was running at 1440p, all settings on high, FSR on balance, and I was getting, between 60 and 70 frames, and super crystal clear image, and absolutely loved it on the big screen. One thing I'll say is that having HDR on makes a big difference. So definitely do that if you have a Steam machine. On my PC, I have a 5080 GTX, and I ran everything on ultra, ray tracing on at 4K, and was at 80 frames. In terms of optimization, it is a Unreal Engine 5 game, and it runs beautifully, and it's super optimized. So if I had to rate this game, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. It kept me engaged the whole playthrough, and every time I turned the game on, I never felt like I wasn't making progress. I was always finding something new. I was always killing another boss, finding another area, finding a secret, completing a dungeon, cleansing a shrine. It was just constant progress the whole time. And for, a second attempt for a new studio to make with 30 people, it's unbelievable. And I can't recommend this game enough. So if you're looking for a Souls game that is accessible, that's not really hard, then I definitely recommend this. If you did like this video, guys, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.